They can't hear me?
Go try now.
Can you guys hear me? I don't know. Da 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 da. Zombie, zombie, in your head, in your head. No. Yeah, but like, I don't think you can test if it's running on.
Okay, here we go.
Can they hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So they probably heard me singing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, cool. All right, sorry for the singing. I thought you guys couldn't hear me.
Now we can't.
Mark, Kurt is asking how much money he's got to spend to see your body. That sweet, supple body.
Let's say private lessons, $5.
Mark can be your tiny dancer for $5. His words.
I'm already disappointed though. I just got metal on skin, and now I have to fix that.
So I'm not sure if you guys could hear me before, but I am working on my Ale Guzzler Gargant for the new zombie goblin release, not zombie. Thinking about the song I was singing earlier. And I'm finishing the modifications for it. So and this is kind of where he's at. I posted him on the store earlier. And what I'm doing today is kind of finishing some of the mods, but then doing up the
It's not angry.
the God, why can't the finishing touches. So closing up seams, making sure everything kind of
Pink.
gets that nice finished look. And right now I'm building up the mushroom on his right shoulder. So what I'm doing is I'm applying, I sculpted a base coat on it, right? And the base coat is a very important part.
I mean,
hey, can one of you boys pass me a paper towel?
Paper towel.
Doing a base sculpture is always good because it
become,
helps
like, my favorite
future
thing now,
layers
because they love
apply to
shorthand
it.
to just
And
3
so
lines.
you always
So sun
want
here,
to kind of plan things
3,
out
9.
Oh, I
and
thought you said
get
like
as much
999.
possible
Yeah, they'll do like 999.
I get it now.
Had my
like
Japanese
an
friend
underlayer,
explain that one to me.
and
When he
like, you
kept
know,
using
realize
it
that
in
you can
his,
always come
his
back.
texts. I was like, what the
Being
hell
able
is
to come
this?
back to
He's like, oh,
a
so
project,
thank you.
like step by step, will ensure the best
And
results.
here we thought it
Just
been
because
satanic from the southern
one, it
hemisphere.
gives you a little bit of time to think about what you've done, and then secondly, it lets you build on top of a former layer. It lets you kind of like refine it a
Couldn't
little bit
pronounce
too.
Abacus?
So. Alright. I think no. Okay, cool. It's fine. It's fine. Sorry, guys, if we had some mic issues. That was all me. I'm not sure if you guys caught it or not, but one of the things I am doing is coating my tools in a thin layer of Vaseline. And this is one of those things that a little bit goes a long way, and it's kind of hard to teach how to do it, but I will apply a little bit of Vaseline and then I will wipe off the excess. And when you think about it, it's an oil-based thing, and anything that's really like oil-based will be pretty difficult to actually remove. And so once you get it on the tool, it's pretty much there. And if you find it to start sticking again, you can go ahead and repeat the process. So just do a little dip in the Vaseline, wipe off excess with paper towel, go in there and work with it. One of the things is you definitely don't want to put too much Vaseline on it because it can kind of screw up, especially if you're layering green stuff on top of green stuff. Because once you have Vaseline on the green stuff, I don't want to blow your mind, but pretty much nothing else will stick to it. So,
I'm pretty sure Band-Aid ran.
Mark, I don't think so.
Why is that theme song
They probably weren't considering green stuff at the time. I mean, I know it's a shortcoming on their part, but we can't really fault them too much. So, and the big thing too is when you're sculpting, kind of have a thought in mind of what you are doing with the model, because you don't want to sculpt in an area first that you're going to be like running your fingers across a whole bunch. So kind of have a thought on where each thing's going. And as of right now, I'm using the back end of this tool to kind of push the outer frill of the mushroom out, giving it a little bit more natural shape and a bit of a lip to it. And one of the things I'm doing with my tool is smoothing out the model, or the green stuff that I layered, making sure that there's no fingerprints or tool prints left behind. Leaving a fingerprint behind, one, can get you in trouble with the law, so don't do that. Two, it very quickly makes like anything that you're sculpting look amateurish. Amateurish? Did I say that? And you don't want that, right? Because even if this is your hobby, you still want everything to look great. And one thing that I can tell you is no matter how much I try, I still kind of get fingerprints on everything.
I do that enough times with glue.
Right? Like, yeah, with glue especially. Like, you will 100% of the time leave, fingerprints on your model. God, it's so frustrating. So the next thing I'm doing, I'm putting a little bit of green stuff here. I'm having this lovely attack squig on the model. And he glued into place just fine, but there's a bit of gaps from where the squig touches the armor, or squig is on the armor to where he is not. So I am making sure that his foot is 100% flush with the piece of the model. And this is kind of like gap filling. I'm following the same basic premises of putting it on, pushing it in with a nice narrow tool. You can either do this one with like a flat tool. I'm using one with a slight curve to it. And it's working just fine. And like I said, this is just to kind of make it sit more flush with the model, which means it'll have less likelihood of like snapping off during play or storage or use or anything like that. And so with this epoxy mix, you can use a little bit of water to kind of soften it, which is nice. That's something that the Aves brings to the green stuff, which is nice. But yeah, it helps you really like thin things down. And to give you a quick preview of what you're doing,
Oh, that thing's wonderful.
making sure that you don't have like random fingerprints that hit the backs of the models, which I do all the time. And we're going to do like a final check once we think we're done, because I can promise you, once you think you're done, you're not. That is true. You guys probably hear voices in the background. It is not the imaginings of your subconscious mind. It is, in fact, Ryan and Mark. Ryan, what are you working on? Crabjack?
Yeah, Leviathan from War Machine.
Yeah. And Mark's working on a Chaos Spawn for this Age of Sigmar League.
I stole the Gorby's Chariot Beast, and I was like, this makes a better, like, undivided Chaos Spawn, I think.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot too. And especially since like Chaos Spawns are supposed to be pretty varied in terms of like size and shapes.
You look at the one that's devoted to corn, and it's basically like a gorilla.
Yeah.
So why not have one that's, just more decently?
Yeah, no, I really like the thought of that. And it looks nice and it's different,
And I'm not a big fan of the Chaos Spawns
And I don't know if you guys can tell, especially about how I'm sculpting, but I really like all my stuff to be unique and different and have a bit of character to it. So as of right now, I've done all the sculpting that I've wanted to do. However, if you guys want me to add something else on this model, I will leave it up to the viewer's choice. So speak up soon or forever hold your peace. Once I move on to the big moon, I will call the sky done. So, when you're gap filling, liquid green stuff will generally be much more effective cost and time-wise than green stuff will be, but since I have it available, and I also don't like the effect of liquid green stuff sometimes, like just because depending on how old the pot is, it can kind of look a little chalky, and I want this guy to look as good as gargantly possible. See what I did there? No one laughed. It's okay. Ryan gave me a pity chuckle. And that's why he's on the payroll. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the green stuff in the seam. I am then getting a wet tool, or once again, like the Vaseline has kind of dried out on this, but this is perfect for this step. And I am putting a little pressure on and wiping away the excess. So the thought is it will only stay in the seam, and it will gap fill the model without destroying any detail. And so this is one of my probably more like, this is the way I like to fill gaps when I definitely want the model to look its best. If I'm using liquid green stuff, then the usual like thought is, hey, I don't want gaps on this model, the end. And I don't necessarily care as much about things left behind. And I'm also really disappointed that Kurt didn't ask me to sculpt Mark's face on this Gargant when I gave him the chance. So while I'm doing this step, I am being critical, and I'm making sure to find like any extra mold lines or anything like that that I want to clean up, because the thought is once I'm done with this step plus a little bit of cleaning, I'm going to move into sculpting. That's what I want to do. Yeah, I know, like the last thing I want is being like, oh hey, I'm finally to painting, oh cool, there's this mold line that I didn't see, or the seam that I thought I got and I didn't. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of rubbing the green stuff across the seam that I have, because I'm pretty sure I got it all, but this is kind of catching any sort of seam or crack or whatever that's still there. So I really appreciate that, the fact that, you know, hey, this is kind of a way of catching catching all of the cracks and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. So once again, dragging it across, making sure I got it. And this step, I'll definitely have to come back with like some sandpaper or a file to refine. It's just kind of the nature of it. But the finished product will be much more presentable. And I'm coming back this way to kind of take care of this gap. And as you can see, like my plan is working down from the model. So we're working from the top down. I started off on that mushroom on his upper shoulder. Then I am slowly but surely making my way down. And I'm saying this as I realize I forgot to green stuff the face guard on him, so it's fine. No one's watching this anyways. Except for Kurt, but Kurt's only here for that sweet, sweet Mark action. Mark, what did you do to him?
I have no idea.
God. I wish someone would look at me the way Kurt looks at Mark. Okay, so I have pretty much green stuffed as best as possible the seam on the sides. And now, because I talked about it too soon, I'm working on the face guard, which is this kind of like bone jaw template thing. I don't know if template's the right. So, this one seam is a little bit more egregious than the one on the body, so it's definitely not something you want to leave off or leave behind. So slowly wrap your way around. Make sure your tool's wet so you can actually get into the cracks and the crevices. And using it to kind of peel away any of the excess. And remember, like, especially with this step, guys, like, you are going to be coming back once it's set. And before you prime, you will file or sand or use your X-Acto knife to kind of scrape down the excess. So try to get it as best as possible, but don't lose sleep, because sleep is important. So one of the reasons why I try to avoid water while sculpting something with this mix is it loses its ability to adhere really, really quick.
Here's an important question. If stranger things happen in Philadelphia, would the upside down be called Philadelphia?
That's where Grady comes from.
And how quickly would Will Smith be there?
Ooh,
Well, see, he moved to Bel Air with his aunt and uncle. So,
maybe not. Maybe that's the experiment.
All right. So I green stuffed the major areas that I can see seams with. So now I will be moving on to the moon face. So the moon face. Oh, okay, cool. It's still no, it's not. I think duck face is like officially dead. I think it's.
face.
Platypus face.
I mean, I'm down with platypus face. Anyways, so if you guys want to see this again while it's setting up, let me know. I'll pull it out and you guys can look at it. So,
That's where you stab
working on this moon guy, what I'm going to be doing is working from the bottom up on him, and I'm going to be pulling equal parts of this Aves epoxy sculpt. And I'm going to be working majoritively in this because, once again, it's a little bit more cost effective than... I say that, it's actually not that. So I'm actually going to go back to my mix of green stuff and Aves for this because I like the consistency and I like the way that it sands. And I like the way that it works at no diggity. And so once again, I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the Aves mix than I am on the epoxy or the green stuff. Just because I like that consistency a little bit better. But make sure when you're working with the Aves epoxy sculpt and all that, close up your little capsules because that's going to be the way that these guys dry out. And then it's not really any fun to use and you wasted money and blah 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 and it's, you know.
Look at this hobby, John.
This is to waste money.
Yeah.
It's not to have fun and
It's to waste money
memories.
along the way.
Yeah. So always be mindful of when you're mixing green stuff that you're probably always grabbing more than you need. In this case, who knows if I am or not, because I'm working on this giant moon head. So this... No, you're not a giant moon head. Ryan, much like me, is working on a fantastic beard. But your head isn't moon-like at all.
You're just making me jealous, though.
Mark, your beard is on the inside.
So is this like that Dexter episode?
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Okay, cool. I saw that a couple days ago, and that must be exactly why I pulled it. But yes, Mark, that is it is exactly like the Dexter episode.
Your beard is on the inside of Dexter.
So I'm gonna mix these all together at once, which is absolutely fine. Make sure that you get any like particulates or random pieces like your cat's hair or your dog's hair or your hair or Ryan's hair.
That's what makes it special.
Yeah, no, but like I don't. So like the thing I hate is because like I always find it after it's set, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll just tug on this hair, and it just like makes this awful vein running down whatever I sculpted.
Yeah. No, I had that exact problem.
So you struggled in vain?
Stop it. 2 more, Mark, and you're off the stream. Mark likes to make puns. So as I'm mixing this, it's going to be this kind of like, it's not going to be as vibrant as green stuff normally is, but that's okay. And that's kind of what we want. So what I'll be doing now is a method that I usually don't do a lot, especially not since on stream, because I usually don't sculpt on stream. But anyways, it's going to be the block-in method, where I'm taking a little bit of green stuff at a time.
I think I'd use some of that pink when I'm
And
ready.
Oh yeah.
Don't need it right now.
once again, I kind of want to
Plethora of pink.
I was gonna start scarring
I
the beast.
get a little bit of water on my hands, so it doesn't stick to me, but sticks to the sculpt. But when you do this like block-in method, it prevents you from just like throwing a whole bunch of green stuff on the model, and then you kind of have to push it around. This kind of lets you slowly apply piece by piece where you want the green stuff to go. And I know with him, Mr. Moonface, I want the green stuff at first to focus on the bottom, because it'll kind of give me support and strength for the rest of it. And that's more so what I want than anything else at the moment, is a good base. And so ideally I'm going to get the moon mostly in, the moon part, and leave the face. Leave this fella's face off, as David would say.
Do y'all know how to pick Arcana in the app? Is there a thing?
I think when you go to war, it lets you. Like when you do the like go to battle, but I don't know much outside of that.
Decide until the battle.
Yeah.
No, but like, I just wanted. If in the app, do you is
So-
there a way to set them aside, the ones you pick, or just have to keep track of yourself?
You'll have to keep track of yourself. A lot of people will print out the cards.
Okay.
So
Because you're not restricted to what you have until like the last second, they will do it. But
And-
it might be a go to war option. So
Okay.
you can start your game, you can pick.
and if you print out the cards, you can then get yourself a dual disc. And so whenever you activate your Arcana, you can say you've activated my trap card. And that's how true players play Grimkin.
This is the most important part. The
Yeah.
reason many people pick.
You cast 2 last turn.
My blue eyes white dreamer.
Oh. Not so fast, Yugi. You've already activated your trap card. Which means you can't do this turn.
Oh, but you see, Mr. Karibo, who is in my field in the defense position, lets me play too.
Quality streams right here, guys. You're welcome.
Everything wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh.
Everything.
Yeah, no, and it's like. but it's
How
funny.
long is it?
Huh?
Said how long is that video?
Well, it goes through each season, so it's a lot. But it's funny, you know, like
Not all of them are on motorcycles. What is this problem?
he'll say a quote from the show, and just like the narrator will is like, that rule doesn't exist. And then I'll activate that rule doesn't exist. These people obviously break the rules. Like, this image was taken from Google. It just, like, they literally made this card just for a convenient block place.
That's funny. So a lot of this is going to be me applying piece by piece and then smoothing it out and getting it into the shape I want, and realizing that I am going to be coming back and sanding this and then probably sculpting additional texture. So it's really important for me to get a nice even layer, so when I do sand it, one, it doesn't fall apart on me, because that is going to be concerned with this insulation foam undercoat.
I'll never fall apart in the game.
I know you won't, Mark, but Mr. Moonface might. And so every piece is kind of strengthening, every piece of green stuff and all that is strengthening the base structure and will give him a good amount of durability, especially when it comes to the refining process that I like to do, because I like to do a lot of sanding and refinement that way, because I find that I can get usually a better result by using my hard edges that way, because, like, you know, green stuff a lot of the time doesn't actually hold like a sharp edge very well, which is one of the reasons why I mix it with the Aves, so it can.
Do you think the moon is self-conscious? That's why it only shows its good side and has that orbit around the Earth?
You know,
Chinese and land, just landed on that dark side.
I heard.
so we lost that race.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They've got animals and stuff up there. I forget what they put.
What?
The
Be running like a
Chinese, they
panda.
landed thing on the dark side of the moon like last week.
Oh, that's right.
Like the Transformers movie.
Yeah, yeah. They're looking for Grimlock.
Fucking sweet. I'm on board. God, that means I'm now on the FBI watch list.
I like the joke that, like, they land and they throw the American flag on the ground. And, like, will the Americans go up to put another one up? It's like, damn well,
Well,
bet
bet.
your ass they will.
You want to see the space program get way more funding than it ever has in a while? Do it. What are you doing, John?
I am working on a piece for the Age of Sigmar League. I am sculpting this big old moon face.
Also, I saw the opening on the TCGs or on the tabletop side.
Oh, cool.
And I applied.
Yeah,
gave me
yeah.
the resume and I applied online. Last
Awesome.
night. Also, Ryan, we're gonna probably have to play a game tonight. I gotta put together some more of my units. I found more of my fire eaters, so I actually have more units to play you with.
So while you're doing this like method that I'm working with, you can always kind of find pockets where it doesn't necessarily line up. And I'm seeing a bit of the original insulation foam kind of showing through right now, and I want to do what I can to prevent that. But it might be something that we'll have to wait for the next round of green stuff. I have a limited work time with green stuff. Like, you really get maybe like an hour or so, but it's not really that. It's usually pretty much less than that. And so in this time frame that I have, I need to make sure that I am keeping what I established with the foam undercut and then applying the green stuff as efficiently as possible and making sure that it holds. So, I'm using water right now, and I am coming through and smoothing out and making sure that all that stuff is kind of hitting the areas that I want, and all that sort of good business. Trying to keep that curve to the moon in those like sharp angles is really important to me. So yeah, and it's important, especially when you're working on like a three-dimensional thing. Don't get distracted by just one side, because I will do that. Make sure both sides are equally supported and taken care of. And one of the big things is this connection point. I used a little bit of Uhu glue to get them onto the support, but it hasn't really set the way that I wanted it to. So once this green stuff dries, I will have a bit more structure to the sculpt, and hopefully be able to be a little bit more aggressive with this application. And so my thoughts are to be done with the sculpting of this by this weekend, so I can give it to the gentleman who's casting it for me, so we can basically get going and start working on the next phase of this. And so the idea is this is going to be our Bad Moon token for the Gloomspite Gets Allegiance ability, and then also we will be using additional casts to put onto terrain features, which I'm pretty excited about. And if you guys are playing in the Age of Sigmar League, I'm excited to see you guys playing.
Oh, huh.
Is that a Nathan?
Hey Nathan, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you guys doing the stream?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So one of the things that I'm finding out is that a bit of the moon is sticking out towards where I had the edge. So I'm coming...
Andrew Overton rolling dice, I guarantee it.
Yeah, it 100% is. You roll dice with the force of 1,000 suns.
Good old Mod
So,
Pod.
a round is like when it comes back to the player who went first again, right?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, a round is when it's back to the person who did the ability.
Oh, okay, so okay, so there's like an arcana thing that for Grimkin that Jarrett's trying to figure out, and I have no idea how Grimkin works.
Which arcana is it?
I don't know. He doesn't want to tell me because we're about to play.
Well, tell him to come over here.
All right.
We'll hook him up. I'm just going to tell him to play the frog.
CID's almost out.
So once again, constantly coming back, refining, improving, doing cool stuff, like doing a little curve point. Oh god, and not destroying anything you've done in previous. So what I should have done before doing this step is probably hit this guy with Mod Podge, which
Hodgepodge to that.
is a good sealant for anything foam, but I wanted to have a good foam underlayer to this project. Just one to save myself some time, give myself some practice with the craft foam, and go from there. So, like I said, I'm going to be using a lot of this green stuff to kind of block in a lot of the area and make sure that the curve of the moon looks appropriate. So like I want it to be as close to a semicircle as possible. Nasha, just get Coke Zero from Restaurant Depot.
That's what we're doing
Oh
now.
yeah, that's true. My bad.
If Kobe doesn't come in, I want you to get Cherry Zero.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. So, the curve to me is looking pretty good. And like I said, a lot of this will be refined as I get further and get more into this project. So I'm going to go back to my initial thing because I got distracted with over refining something, which is one of my big faults, and I know that. So once again, I'm coming in and I'm just putting patches of the green stuff, as opposed to doing, like, trying to coat this entire thing at once. And this helps me a lot of ways. Lets it hold a little bit better, at least in my opinion, and also keeps it nice and thin and not me like globbing on way too much. And all that sort of good stuff. So the things that I am attempting to do is block. I have enough to block in the moon completely. So I want to block it in, get it nice and covered, and maybe kind of build up the nose, because the nose is probably the most fragile piece on the model. And then from there, I'm going to start smoothing it out and making sure everything looks good. So I'm putting this on because it lets me work with the green stuff with my hands and keeps it tacky, which is really important. And so, like, when I come in with some Vaseline or whatever I'm going to do to thin it out, oh, nice. Those are really good effects. Mark's working on his cast spot, and he just did some really wicked scarring on him. So, like, once again, like, as you're doing this, like, getting an effect like this, don't worry about, because once again, we are just trying to block things in, and we are going to do a lot of refining once things are set. Because we're going to put some Vaseline on our hands and on our tools and use those things to make sure everything looks okay. And the nice thing is, I was pretty on the nose in terms of my sculpt usage. So let's see if we can refine it in the amount of work time we have left. One of the nice things is as the green stuff gets closer to setting, it'll become a little bit more resilient to being pushed and moved around, which might sound awful, but it's going to be super helpful with making sure we get everything set. And the nose is going to be really important to reinforce. So I'm making sure I get some good green stuff connection on both sides. And then I'm going to continue to ball up on it. And if I need to, I can come back with some extra green stuff. I can make some more to make sure that we get it nice and set in there. All right, cool. Let's refine this nightmare into something a little bit more palatable. So, putting a little bit of Vaseline on my hands and fingers to make sure that I can manipulate this without sticking it or destroying anything that I have before. This is also going to make my fingers super slippery, so that should be super fun.
Go shake some hands out for this.
Right? I'm a big proponent of actually using my hands in sculpture projects, and I don't know.
Was it after you saw the movie Ghost?
No, it's just I like the tactile feeling of it a lot. Like I feel like it's a pretty rewarding like part of sculpting. And like once this is refined, I'm gonna go wash my hands and come in with a tool. And the big thing with the nose is I really want to keep pulling it until it is covering a majority of the underlying foam. And a lot of that is just to reinforce the foam so I can continue to sculpt on it and not be afraid of damaging or breaking or doing anything else to the underlayer. And so I'll probably be using a sander for when the green stuff actually sets. So, oh god, this is probably terrible live streaming because of all the hand covering. So, once again, also keeping the, the model true to the original shape and design is really big. And since I rushed through and started working on the top before the bottom was set, it pushed a lot of the green stuff. Into a position I'm not necessarily a huge fan of. So, once again, so once again, I'm kind of getting the shape that I want, and I'm getting pretty happy with it. And a lot of what's going to be left is going to be tool refinement. So I'm going to go ahead and grab or wash my hands and grab some tools and kind of hopefully level things out. Mark, come over here and talk about what you're doing.
Alright, let's see if I can do this. Alright, there's no room for anything. All this while it's drying out. Alright. So, blop. There's the camera. So what I'm working on is a Gorby's Chariot. Oh god, that's not showing much at all. But the Gorby's Chariot piece, I went with the horses instead. And since I went with the horses, I had this piece left. And so right now I'm just blocking in all the colors, but I started doing detail on the back. Come on, I guess there we go. So still not really showing too well. Maybe. All right, there we go. You can kind of see I scarred up his back. I used a lot of magenta colors and then pinks to show he's been whipped a lot. I guess closer look. You can kind of see the straps on the shoulders. Huh?
Put your finger like closer to the camera. And it should
Oh, it should zoom.
focus. Autofocus? Do we not have autofocus?
Finger. I don't know. Maybe not.
Ah.
Anyway, well,
Just shout focus at it.
focus.
Rotate. Enhance.
Anyway, but the straps. Oops, I'll point with my brush. But the straps on the shoulders here and here, I just basically cut with an X-Acto knife to look like it had broken free. No, that dried out. Oh well. But I've been mixing colors to kind of highlight the skin more. Wasn't exactly enjoying it just being the two dark shades with the bright metal. I haven't gone in with the bronze or the creamy whites for the horns yet and the browns. But I think this definitely makes a better chaos spawn than the actual chaos spawn. I've never been a fan of that model. If anyone heard me talking to Ryan or Drew, basically the chaos spawn is this writhing mass of tentacles and flesh and all that, and it's not exactly
It's appealing. Don't you say those words, Mark.
well, you can customize it to whatever god you wish to represent, but it's always going to be that like Quasimodo-esque body.
Yeah, it is kind of janky looking.
And but Korn actually has his own like chaos spawn, and it looks more like a gorilla. So why not use this gorilla-esque looking thing as your own chaos spawn? I plan on trying to go undivided, or at least like run it with a chaos mark, but say it's undivided, because I believe some of the units I want to run don't have a choice of being markless. But yeah, that's pretty much it on this guy so far.
Thanks, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm back. Oh, cool. So, hopefully to put some edges and other refinements on this moon face. Hopefully making sure I'm using a flat edge tool to build that sharp angle again. So once again, this is going to be kind of like a polishing step where I am removing fingerprints, hand marks, all that sort of fun stuff from the model while returning an edge to it. But be mindful that, hey, we're probably not going to get as sharp of an edge as we want just due to the nature of the medium. But this is like, because you'll get like little patches of where green stuff connects, and it'll look very much like patches of where green stuff connects. And you don't really want that a whole lot. So this is a great step to reduce that.
Or you can just do it with Nurgle and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well that's the thing, is like a lot of people get their starting like chops, at least in terms of like conversion, with like Nurgle stuff. And that's awesome because like Nurgle stuff I love for the fact that there's not really, you can't really screw it up. And I love telling that to new people.
I mean, think of it this way. You want that like writhing mass, like kind of Nurgle tentacle thing going. You've been practicing making like Play-Doh snakes since preschool, so you're ready to do that when it comes to Nurgle.
Yeah.
You've had decades of training, even if you're only like, you know, like 25 years old. You've had 2 decades of training.
always produce something.
Mom said my Play-Doh snakes never amount to nothing.
Showed her.
Yeah.
So, I am smoothing things out. This is probably one of the more strenuous steps because it's more involved than, or I guess there's more on the line than all of it. And so I like to use two separate tools. One's a flat edge tool, and the other one is this kind of like rounded edge tool. And I usually find the rounded edge is great for doing the initial smoothing, and then the flat edge is great for doing that like final touch, right? Like making sure it keeps as much of an edge as possible and you go home nice and happy. Oh yeah, I got shipping confirmation.
This dude's gonna just buy.
I almost got some of that fluorescent paint for Emily.
Borrow some of mine. In the neighborhood, Ryan.
I imagine like everybody gets one.
So a lot of this is just going to be refinement and going back and forth on the model. So like working on an area, letting it sit, coming back, and then seeing what you can improve after you left it alone for a little bit. And I like that, or I like doing that a lot for my projects because fresh eyes and such give you a lot of insight in terms of how to improve yourself and do all that sort of thing. So we are getting close to end time, guys. So we are probably going to end the stream here. I will hopefully be back next week, or I will be back next week, but hopefully with this guy finished, and maybe we can do some painting on him. So if you guys want to see me sculpt more or do anything more like that, please comment or tell me in person or do any of those cool things. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time.
Where does it stop?